Okay, good morning. Our project for today is to begin the discussion of our first part of our poem, okay? So it's our first battle between Beowulf and Grendel. That's how we're going to title the first part. It's going to take us as a background. We're going to get to know Grendel all the way to that fight against Beowulf, okay? Volunteer for the first part.
A powerful monster, living down in the darkness, growled in pain, impatient. As day after day the music rang, loud in the hall, the hearts rejoicing. Call in the poet's clear songs, sung, of the ancient beginnings of us all, recalling. The Almighty making the earth, shaping. These beautiful plains marked off by oceans, then proudly setting the sun and moon to glow across the land and light it. The corners of the earth were made lovely with trees and leaves, made quick with life with each of the nations who now moved on its face, and then, as now warriors sang of their pleasure.
Okay, why Grendel is impatient here? Why? You have it at the beginning.
The music.
The music. The joy of the meat hall, it has Grendel apparently mad. So he's angry because people are having a great time in this case, the Harrod Hall. Okay? Go on.
So Hrothgar, men, lived happy in the hall, till the monsters stared. That demon, that fiend, Grendel, who haunted the moors, the wild marshes, and made his home in a hell, not hell but earth. He spawned in that slime, conceived by a pair of those monsters, born of Cain. Murderous creatures banished by God, punished forever for the crime of Abel's death.
Right there we go back to our background that we have. Right now when you read this, since you already know the background, you're able to understand what he's saying right here in this part. Okay, go on.
The Almighty drove those demons out, and their exile was bitter. Shut away from men, they split into 1,000 forms of evil spirits.
So apparently all of the evils and all of the spirits are from that incident between Cain and Abel. From there on, we have all the demons that we have on earth now. Okay, go on.
And fiends, goblins, monsters, giants, a brood forever opposing the Lord's will, and again defeated. Then, when darkness had dropped, Grendel went up to Herod, wondering what the warriors would do in that hall when their drinking was done.
Okay, when the drinking is done, what do you think they're going to do? Now they're going to what? After everything is done, they're just going to go to sleep. So Grendel is going to come in the middle of the night, and he's going to get these guys all asleep, okay? Go on. He found them?
He found them sprawled in sleep, suspecting nothing. Their dreams undisturbed. The monsters' thought were as quick as his greed over his claws. He slipped through the door, and there in the silence snatched up 30 men, smashed them, unknowing, in their beds, and ran out with their bodies, the blood dripping behind him back to his lair, delighted with his night's slaughter.
How many men he killed?
30.
30, very important. So he comes at night, boom, and all of a sudden he kills 30 men and goes back, okay? So what he's going to do is, he's going to go back to his lair. That's his place where he lives, okay? A hidden place where he lives. So this guy is a powerful monster, and all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, he ends up killing 30 people, okay? 30 warriors.
At daybreak, with the sun's first light, they saw how well he had worked, and in that great morning broke their long feasts with tears and laments for the dead. Hrothgar, their lord, sat joyless in Herod, a mighty prince mourning the fate of his lost friends and companions, knowing by its tracks that some demon had torn his followers apart. He wept, fearing The beginning might not be the end. And that night Grendel came again.
Okay, stop there. So we have Rodgar that is what he's suffering the death of his people. Okay, it's not an actual king that, for example, they kill his people and it's like, well, we'll replace them and we'll continue. He's a good king. So he suffers the death and mourns the death of his warriors. Okay, go ahead. And then that night.
And that night Grendel came again, so set on murder that no crime could ever be enough. No savage assault quenched his lust for evil.
So this guy came again and doing the same thing over and over. Go on.
Then each warrior tried to escape him, searched for rest in different beds, as far from Herod as they could find. Seeing how Grendel hunted when they sleep, distance was safety. The only survivors were those who fled him.
So if you guys, for example, the warriors that were there, the only escape was just to go away from Denmark. If you stay there, he was gonna get you. Okay? So the only way of escaping was just go away from Denmark. Go ahead.
Hate had triumphed, so Grendel ruled, fought with the righteous, one against many and won. So Herod stood empty and stayed deserted for years. 12 winters of grief for Hrothgar, king of the Danes. Sorrow heaped at his door. By hell-forged hands.
Okay, Grendel attacked this place for 12 years. So he attacked for 12 years, continue attacking, and murdering people.
Does he have a reason for attacking?
Just because he's tired, he doesn't want like that music and that joy. He's just don't want to deal with that, and he just started killing people just for own pleasure. There's not an actual like real reason. If someone like killed someone from his family, no, he just did it because he wanted to do it, plain and simple. Okay.
His misery leaped. The seas was told and sung in all men's ears. How Grendel's hatred began. How the monsters released his savage war on the Danes, keeping the bloody feud alive, seeking no peace, offering no truce, accepting no settlement, no price in gold or land, and paying the living for one crime only with another.
So this guy doesn't negotiate. He doesn't care if you give him gold, if you give him jewelry, if you give him money, if you give him whatever. He's not going to negotiate. He says, you know what? I'm going to continue doing it. So there's no way to negotiate with this monster. Okay?
No one waited for reparation from his blundering claws. That shadow of death hunted in the darkness. Stalked Hrothgar warriors, old and young, lying and waiting hidden in mist, invisibly following them from the edge of the marsh, always there unseen. So mankind's enemy continues his crime, killing as often as he could, coming alone, bloodthirsty and horrible. Though he lived in Herod when the night hid him, he never dared to touch King Hrothgar's glorious throne, protected by God, whose love Grendel could not know.
Very important. What happened with Grendel? He couldn't what?
Hrothgar.
He couldn't harm Hrothgar. Why? Hrothgar's throne was what?
Protected by God.
And what was the vocabulary word that I said that it was?
Divine intervention.
Very good. Divine intervention. So we have the example of divine intervention here in this part, okay? So Hrothgar's throne is protected. However, it's good, you're protected. However, you're what? Alone. Okay? You're alone because you have to continue to kill your people.
But Hrothgar's heart was bent. The best and most noble of his council debated remedies, sat in secret sessions, talking of terror and wondering what the bravest of warriors could do. And sometimes they sacrificed to the old stone gods, made heathen vows, hoping for hell's support, the devil's guidance in driving their affliction off. That was their way, and the heathens' only hope. Hell always in their hearts, knowing neither God nor his passing as he walks through our world, the Lord of heaven and earth. Their ears could not hear his praise, nor know his glory. Let them beware. Those who are thrust into danger, clutched at by trouble, yet can carry no solace. In their hearts cannot hope to be better. Hail to those who will rise to God, drop off their bodies, and seek our Father's peace.
Okay, so right there you have a bit of what? Of God and of peace and all of that. This guy continues to do this over and over and over. So Hrothgar is suffering, continues to kill people, and Grendel has done this for 12 straight years. So right now, we're going to get introduced by our epic hero. Now we're going to get to know Beowulf, okay?
Seguimos en parte 1.
We're still in part number 1, okay? Natalia, go ahead.
So the living sorrow of Healfdane's son simmered, bitter and fresh, and no wisdom or strength could break it. That agony hung on king and people alike, harsh and unending, violent and cruel and evil. In his far-off home, Beowulf, Higlac's follower.
Very important. The king of Geatland is Hyglac. Hyglac is the king of Geatland, okay? So Beowulf is the follower. So if Hyglac dies, Beowulf gets the throne. He's the second in charge. If Hyglac dies, then Beowulf will become king.
Wait,
okay?
so he's Heathland's son?
No,
No?
no.
Yeah.
In this case, since Beowulf has done a lot of great things for his people, that's why he's been called the next in line, okay?
Oh, okay. Follower and the strongest of the gates, greater and stronger than anyone, anywhere in this world, heard how Grendel filled knights with horror, and quickly commanded a boat fitted out, proclaiming that he'd go to that famous king, would sail across the sea to Hrothgar. Now, when help was needed,
So Beowulf listened to the comments of the people that there's a monster in Denmark and is killing a lot of people. So Beowulf has been a strong warrior and he has protected his people. So he is now going to go to Denmark to what? To offer protection to that king, to Hrothgar. Okay, so he commanded for a boat so he could sail. He's going to go in a journey all the way from Geatland to Denmark. Okay,
and why is he doing it again?
he's doing it because, remember, when you are accustomed to fighting and getting glory, like in that part, it becomes like a challenge for Beowulf. That's like a challenge. It's like when I have done everything in the world and there's something that I can say that could be a challenge and an adventure for me. Boom, I want to do that. Remember, that ego of Beowulf is high. It's high. If he gets to kill this monster, hey, everyone is going to what? Bow on Beowulf. And that's something. Beowulf likes fame. Okay, very important. He likes fame. So that's why he's saying, you know what? I'm going to take this guy. If no one has done it, I will be the one that will do it. Okay?
None of the wise ones regretted his going, much as he was loved by the Geats. The omens were good, and they urged the adventure on. So Beowulf chose the mightiest men he could find, the bravest and the best. Of the Geats, 14 in all, and led them down to their boat.
So Beowulf, the warriors there are like, we're going to follow you wherever you go, and we're going to be backing you up. So Beowulf decided to select the 14 best men in that land, and he's going to take them with him all the way to Denmark so they could go to battle together. So it's Beowulf and 14 more for a total of 15 warriors are going to go from Geatland all the way to Denmark, okay? 14 plus Beowulf
To kill the monster.
to kill the monster.
He knew the sea would point the prow straight to that distant Danish shore. Then they sailed, set their ship out on the waves, under the cliffs, ready for what came. They wound through the currents, the seas beating at the sand, and were borne in the lap of their shining ship, lined with gleaming armor, going safely in that oak-hard boat to where their hearts took them.
Okay, remember what we said in the previous, like at the beginning of the Sefer, that Smokey, Smelly, the meat hole was their home. These guys are going to go from one place to another in that journey with that armor. And they're not taking a bath. So imagine how when they arrive all the way to Denmark. So that's why they were constantly smelly, because they barely bathed because of the long journeys that they had. Okay, go on.
The wind hurried them over the waves. The ship foamed through the sea like a bird, until in the time they had known it would take. Standing in the round curled prow, they could see sparkling hills high and green, jutting up over the shore, and rejoicing. In those rock-steep cliffs, they quietly ended their voyage.
So they finally arrived.
Jumping to the ground, the geese pushed their boat to the sand and tied it in place, mail, shirts and armor rattling, as they swiftly moored their ship. And then they gave thanks to God for their easy crossing. High on a wall, a Danish watcher patrolling along the cliffs saw the travelers crossing to the shore, their shields raised and shining. He came riding down, Hrothgar's lieutenant, spurring his horse, needing to know why they'd landed. These men in armor, shaking his heavy spear, in their faces he spoke.
Okay, as they're arriving all the way to Denmark, there's a watchman right there on top of the walls. He's watching what? For everyone as they arrive. If any enemy comes and they need to attack. However, this guy is going to wait for them to arrive, and then he's going to go get in a horse and go down all the way to the boat so he can speak with Beowulf and his men to see what is the reason that they arrived in their land, okay? Go ahead.
Whose soldiers are you? You who've been carried in your deep-keeled ship across the sea road to this country of mine. Listen, I've stood on these cliffs longer than you know, keeping our coast free of pirates, raiders, sneaking ashore from their ships, seeking our lives and our gold.
So this guy has been there protecting them. If a pirate, someone comes to attack, he'll inform and they'll attack quickly. So he wants to know what you're here for, okay?
None have ever come more openly, and yet you've offered no password, no sign from my prince, no permission from my people for your landing.
So they just gave me the boat with no sign, no flags, no nothing. We'll arrive here, we'll get there. We just arrived, Beowulf and the 14 men. Voila, we're here. There was no sign, no signal they could give. We're coming to help, we're gonna attack. There's nothing. That's why the watchman was so confused.
Here nor I've ever seen, out of all the men on earth, one greater than has come with you. No commoner carries such weapons, unless his appearance and his beauty are both lies. You, tell me your name and your father's. No spies go further into Danish soil than you've come already, strangers. From wherever it was you sailed, tell it, and tell it quickly. The quicker the better. I say, for us all, speak. Say exactly who you are, and from where and why. Their leader answered.
And now Beowulf is going to introduce himself.
Beowulf, unlocking words from deep in his breast. We are Geats, men who follow Higlac. My father was a famous soldier, known far and wide as a leader of men. His name was
Edgero. Edgero was the father of Beowulf, okay? And he's dead.
His life lasted many winters. Wise men all over the earth surely remember him still. And we have come seeking your prince, Helfdane's son, protector of his people. Only in friendship instruct us, watchmen. Help us with your words.
So he wants what? He's talking to the watchman. He's saying, you know what? We came here to help you, but we need to talk to your king. So lead us towards your king so we can talk and get this settled, okay?
Our errand is a great one. Our business with the glorious king of the Danes, no secret. There is nothing dark or hidden in our coming. You know, if we've heard the truth and been told honestly, that your country is cursed with some strange, vicious creature that haunts only at night and that no one has seen. It said, watchman, that he has slaughtered your people, brought terror to the darkness.
So right there, if you as a watchman are doubting this guy, you're going to say, well, this guy's coming to help, and he's well informed, so let's help him. Go on.
Perhaps Hrothgar can hunt, here in my heart, for some way to drive this devil out. If anything will ever end the evils afflicting your wise and famous lord, here he can cool his burning sorrow, or else he may see his suffering go on forever, for as long as Herod towers high on your hills. The mounted officer answered him bluntly, the brave watchman. A soldier should know the difference between words and deeds, and keep that knowledge clear in his brain. I believe your words. I trust in your friendship. Go forward, weapons and armor and all, into Denmark. I'll guide you myself, and my men will guard your ship. Keep it safe here on our shores.
So they're going to go ahead and they're going to walk all the way to Hrothgar. They're going to leave this ship right there on the shore, and his people are going to just take care of it, okay?
Your fresh tarred boat, watch it well, until that curving prow carries across the sea to Geatland a chosen warrior who bravely does battle with the creature haunting our people, who survives that horror unhurt and goes home bearing our love. Then they moved on. Their boat lay moored, tied tight to its anchor. Glittering at the top of the golden helmets, wild boar heads gleamed. Shining decorations swinging as they marched, erect like guards, like sentinels, as though ready to fight. They marched, Beowulf and his men, and their guide, until they could see the gables of Herod, covered with hammered gold and glowing in the sun, that most famous of all dwellings, towering majestic and glistening roofs, visible far across the land. Their guide reined in his horse, pointing to that tall built by Hrothgar, for the best and bravest of his men. The path was plain. They could see their way.
So they arrive and they see these big structures right here in Denmark. And they see the big structure of that Harald Hall that was built by Hrothgar. Go on.
Beowulf and his men arrive at Herat and are called to see the king.
That they finally are going to meet.
Beowulf arose with his men around him, ordering a few to remain with their weapons, leading the others quickly under the Herod's steep roof into Hrothgar's presence, standing on that prince's own hearth, helmeted, the silvery metal of his mail shirt gleaming with a smith's high art, he greeted the Danes' great lord. Hail Hrothgar, Hygelac is my cousin and my king. The days of my youth have been filled with glory. Now Grendel's name has echoed in our land. Sailors have brought us stories of Hera, the best of the mead halls. Deserted and useless when the demon hangs in skies, the sun had it.
So Harald Hall is known as the best mead hall around, okay?
Light and life fleeing together. My people have said the wisest, most knowing and best of them, that my duty was to go to the Danes, great king. They have seen my strength for themselves, have watched me rise from the darkness of war, dripping with my enemy's blood. I drove 5 great giants into chains, chased all of that race from the earth. I swam in the darkness of the night, hunting monsters out of the ocean and killing them one by one. Death was my errand and the fate they had earned. Now Grendel and I are called together.
So this guy is just telling you all the things that he has done, all the battles that he has had, and everything that he has done. So he's what? Kind of cocky here, like explaining, I did all of this, and I will continue to do it now. Okay? Go ahead.
And I've come, grant me, then, Lord and protector of this noble place, a single request. I have come so far, O shelter of warriors, and your people's loved friend, that this one favor you should not refuse me, that I, alone, with the help of my men, may purge all evil from this hall. I have heard too that the monster's scorn of men is so great that he needs no weapons and fears none. Nor will I, my lord Higelac, might think less of me if I let my sword go where my feet were afraid to.
Okay, very important. Grendel doesn't use weapons when he comes to the hall and kill people. He uses his claws. Another thing that is very important, Beowulf has said that he will not use weapons to fight Grendel. He's going to use his bare hands. Why? Because if he does it, his king Higelac will think less of him. Okay? So that's very important. It tells the honor and the goodwill of Beowulf. It's like, if you're not going to use weapons, I'm not going to take advantage of you by using weapons. I'm going to fight the same way as you. Okay? Go on.
If I hid behind some broad living shield, my hands alone shall fight for me. Struggle for life against the monster. God must decide who will be given to death's cold grip. Grendel's plan, I think, will be what it has been before, to invade this hall and gorge his belly with our bodies. If he can. And I think if my time will have come, there will be nothing to mourn over, no corpse to prepare.
So he's saying if Grendel gets to kill us, there's not going to be a corpse to bury because he's going to destroy us. Okay? Come on.
For its grave, Grendel will carry our bloody flesh to the moors, crunch on our bones, and smear torn scraps of our skin on the walls of his den. No, I expect no Danes will fret about sowing our throats if he wins. And if death does take me, send the hammered mail of my armor to Higelac.
So if he's saying if I die, my armor, send it back to my king Higelac, okay?
Return the inheritance I had from Grethel, and he from Wayland. Fate will unwind as it must. That night Beowulf and his men stay inside Hera. While his men sleep, Beowulf lies awake, eager to meet with Grendel.
Okay, so now Beowulf is inside the Herald Hall and he's getting ready for who? For Grendel. So his men are sleeping and he's the only one awake. So when Grendel arrives, he's gonna get and they're gonna have their fight. So we're gonna start with the fight and we're still in our part number 1, okay? Yes. What?
Why did he have the other men if they weren't going to fight?
Just in case. He just took them just in case. Because he didn't know, in this case, he just, I'm going to fight this guy, so if I need help, I have him here. Also, he could take them as companions also, so he doesn't go alone in the journey. But we're going to know that basically they're not going to have a key part in this battle.
So they're not going to fight.
So this battle is going to be Grendel, Beowulf, okay? Continue.
Out from the marsh, from the foot of misty hills and bogs, bearing God's hatred, Grendel came, hoping to kill anyone who could trap on this trip to High Herod. He moved quickly through the cloudy night, up from his swampland, sliding silently towards that gold-shining hall. He had visited Hrothgar's home before, knew the way, but never before, after that night, found Herod defended so firmly, his reception so harsh. He journeyed, forever joyless, straight to the door, then snapped it open, tore its iron fasteners with a touch, and rushed angrily over the threshold. He strode quickly across the inlaid floor, snarling and fierce. His eyes gleamed in the darkness, burnt with gruesome light. Then he stopped, seeing the hall crowded with sleeping warriors, stuffed with rows of young soldiers resting together, and his heart laughed. He relished the sight, intended to tear the life from those bodies. By morning, the monster's mind was hot with the thought of food, and the feasting of his belly would soon know. But fate that night intended Grendel to gnaw the broken bones of his last human supper. Human eyes were watching his evil steps, waiting to see his swift, hard claws.
And that one watching Grendel was Beowulf. Go on.
Grendel snatched at the first grace heat. He came to, ripped him apart, cut his body to bits with powerful jaws, drank the blood from his veins, and bolted him down, hands and feet. Death and Grendel's great teeth came together, snapping life shut.
So he killed already one of the warriors from Beowulf. So now we have 13 in Beowulf. Go on.
Then he stepped into another still body, clutched at Beowulf with his claws, grasped at a strong-hearted, wakeful sleeper, and instantly seized himself. Claws bent back as Beowulf leaned up on one arm.
So what happened? Who he meets? He finally meets Beowulf. Okay, go on.
That shepherd of evil, guardian of crime, knew at once that nowhere on earth had he met a man whose hands were harder. His mind was flooded with fear, but nothing could take his talons and himself from that tight, hard grip. Grendel's one thought was to run from Beowulf, flee back to his marsh and hide. This was a different Herod than the hall he had entered.
So we have a what? A scare. He feared Beowulf. Once Beowulf grabbed him, those strong hands of Beowulf, he said, I don't have a break with this guy. So he's starting to what? He's feeling fear.
But Hildegard's follower remembered his final boast, and standing erect, stopped the monster's flight, fastening those claws in his fist till they cracked. Clutched Grendel closer. The infamous killer fought for his freedom, wanting to flesh but retreat, desiring nothing but escape. His claws had been caught. He was trapped. That trip to Herod was a miserable journey from the ripping monster. The high hall rang, its roofs boarded swayed, and Danes shook with terror. Down the aisles of the battle swept, angry and wild. Herod trembled wonderfully, built with withstands and the blows, to withstand the blows, the struggling great bodies beating at its beautiful walls. Shaped and fastened with iron inside and out, artfully worked. The building stood firm, and its benches rattled, fell to the floor. Gold-covered boards grating as Grendel and Beowulf battled across them. Hrothgar's wise men had fashioned Herod to stand forever only fire. They had planned, could shatter, and that such skill had put together, swallow in hot flames such splendor of ivory and iron and wood. Suddenly, the sounds changed. The Danes started in new terror, cowering in their beds as the terrible screams of the almighty enemy sank in the darkness, the horrible shrieks of pain and defeat, the tears torn out of Grendel's taut throat, Hell's captive caught in the arms of him who all the men on earth was the strongest. That mighty protector of men meant to hold the monster till his life leaped out. Knowing that fiend was no use to anyone in Denmark, all of Beowulf's band had jumped from their beds, ancestral swords raised and ready, determined to protect their prince if they could. Their courage was great, but all wasted. They could hack at Grendel from every side, trying to open a path for his evil soul, but their points could not hurt him. The sharpest and hardest iron could not scratch his skin, for that sin-stained demon had bewitched all the men's weapons, laid spells that blunted every mortal man's blade.
So when Beowulf's men wake up, they try to use their swords to attack Grendel. However, Grendel is protected from any sword. So there's no way that a man can attack Grendel with a sword. So even though Beowulf would have won, like to fight with a sword, he couldn't. So because he was protected, Grendel. Okay, he's protected, so no sword will harm him or attack him.
Sword or weapons?
Or weapons. So there's no weapon of use to attack Grendel. In this case, they will have to fight the same way that Beowulf was doing it, with his bare hands. Okay?
And yet his time had come, his days were over, his death near. Down to hell he would go, swept groaning and helpless to the waiting hands of still worse fiends. Now he discovered, once the afflicter of men, tormentor of their days, what it meant to feud with Almighty God. Grendel saw that his strength was deserting him, his claws bound fast. Higlac's brave follower tearing at his arms. The monster's hatred rose higher, but his power had gone. He twisted in pain, and the bleeding sinews deep in his shoulder snapped. Muscle and bone split and broke. The battle was over. Beowulf had been granted new glory. Grendel escaped, but wounded as he could flee to his death. His miserable hole at the bottom of the marsh, only to die to wait for the end of all of his days. And after that bloody combat, the Danes laughed with delight. He had come to them from across the sea, bold and strong-minded, had driven affliction off, purged Herod clean. He was happy now. With that night's fierce work, the Danes had been served as he boasted, and he served them. Beowulf, a prince of the Geats, had killed Grendel, ended the grief, the sorrow, the suffering forced on Hrothgar's helpless people by a bloodthirsty fiend. No Dane doubted the victory, for the proof, hanging high from the rafters where Beowulf had hung it, was the monster's arm, claw, and shoulder and all.
So he killed the monster, and as a proof, he's going to hang his arm in the rafters of the hall. So that was the proof that he killed the monster.
The Danes celebrate Beowulf's victory. That night, though, Grendel's mother kills Hrothgar's closest friend and carries off her child's claw. The next day, the horrified king tells Beowulf about the two monsters in their underwater lake.
Okay, very important. Beowulf killed Grendel. However, who now appears? Grendel's mother. So Grendel's mother comes now. So that will be our second battle, okay? So that'll be it for our first battle, Beowulf versus Grendel. Thank you.